22. Designing humans. Why we could edit life but chose not to. The prediction. What we thought. As genetics surged forward in the 1990s, a provocative idea followed close behind. Parents would soon be able to design their children. Not just screen out severe diseases, but actively select traits, intelligence, height, eye color, temperament. Human reproduction would shift from chance to choice. Biology would become customizable. In this vision, the randomness of birth would give way to optimization. Parenthood would resemble engineering. Evolution would move from blind selection to deliberate design. Standing in 1999, this prediction felt controversial, but technically plausible. If genes determined traits and genes could be manipulated, then designer babies seemed like a natural extension of medical progress. Why this prediction made sense in 1999? The late 1990s were a heady time for genetics. In that era, the Human Genome Project promised unprecedented insight into heredity. Genetic screening was becoming more precise. IVF and embryo selection were advancing. DNA was framed as editable information. The language mattered. Genes were described as blueprints, instructions, code. Once life was framed this way, editing it felt like a matter of capability, not morality. There was also a strong cultural current pushing toward control. Modern medicine had already reduced infant mortality, corrected congenital defects, and extended lifespan. Choosing traits felt like the next step, especially in societies increasingly obsessed with performance and advantage. For younger readers today, it's important to stress how unsettled the ethical landscape still was in 1999. Bioethics existed, but global consensus did not. The fear wasn't whether designer babies were possible, it was whether anyone would stop them. In a millennium-era mindset shaped by technological confidence, restraint did not feel inevitable. Who said it, and where? One of the most influential and unsettling articulations of this future came from Gregory Stock, particularly through his work redesigning humans in the 1990s. Stock argued that once technologies for genetic selection and modification became available, it would be difficult, perhaps impossible, to prevent their use. Parents, he suggested, would feel moral pressure to give their children every possible advantage. Importantly, Stock did not present this as advocacy. He presented it as warning. His work forced readers to confront uncomfortable questions about consent, inequality, and what it would mean to redesign humanity from the inside out. By the late 1990s, the phrase designer babies had entered mainstream discourse, not as science fiction, but as a looming ethical dilemma. What actually happened? 2000 to 2025. The technology advanced, but the future took a sharp detour. Genetic screening became routine. Embryos could be tested for severe inherited diseases. IVF clinics offered selection to reduce the risk of devastating conditions. These practices were widely accepted as medical prevention. But active enhancement did not follow. As gene editing technologies improved, societies reacted not with enthusiasm, but caution. Laws were passed. International agreements were formed. Clear red lines emerged around germline modification, changes that would pass to future generations. By the 2010s and 2020s, genetic editing in embryos was heavily restricted or banned in most countries. Enhancement for non-medical traits was broadly prohibited. Ethical frameworks prioritized consent, safety, and equity. A few high-profile experiments triggered backlash rather than acceptance. Instead of accelerating designer humans, the world recoiled. By 2025, the idea of freely designing children remained legally constrained, ethically contested, and socially taboo. The capability edged forward. The permission did not. Verdict. Status. Legally restricted. Designer babies did not become mainstream. While genetic screening and limited medical intervention are widely used, deliberate genetic enhancement of humans remains legally prohibited or tightly regulated in most of the world. The prediction underestimated society's willingness to draw ethical boundaries. Why it played out this way? The core mistake was assuming that technical possibility would override moral resistance. Unlike many digital technologies, genetic modification touches identity, consent, and inequality directly. The implications felt permanent and irreversible. Mistakes wouldn't crash systems, they would reshape lineages. There was also a powerful equity concern. If enhancement were allowed, it risked entrenching inequality at a biological level. The future of designed advantage felt dystopian rather than aspirational. Finally, the memory of 20th century eugenics loomed large. History acted as a brake. Societies chose restraint not because they lacked capability, but because they remembered where unchecked optimization could lead. What this prediction teaches us about the future. This case reveals an important counterpoint to technological determinism. Not everything that can be done will be done. Unlike software or consumer devices, biological interventions trigger ethical immune responses. Progress slows when stakes feel existential. In 1999, it felt plausible that humanity would engineer itself forward. In 2026, it's clear that we paused, not out of fear of technology, but out of fear of ourselves. The future delivered power. It also delivered limits. One sentence takeaway. We learned how to edit life but decided that some choices were too consequential to automate.